The evening began like any other, with the familiar hum of the refrigerator and the soft glow of lamps illuminating my kitchen. I had just finished preparing dinner, a simple pasta dish, a recipe I could make in my sleep. My husband was still at work, and I often found myself lost in thought during those quiet moments, reflecting on the years that had slipped by. The routine felt suffocating at times, a cycle of chores and responsibilities that left little room for excitement or passion. As I stirred the sauce, I couldn't shake off the feeling of emptiness that settled in my chest. Suddenly, the lights flickered and then plunged me into darkness. A blackout. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sounds of sirens and the rustling of leaves outside. I fumbled for candles in a drawer, my hands trembling slightly as I lit them one by one. The soft flicker created shadows that danced across the walls, transforming my mundane kitchen into a space filled with an unexpected intimacy. It reminded me of simpler times, moments filled with laughter and joy before life became so monotonous. As I stood there, enveloped in darkness but illuminated by candlelight, memories flooded back to me, specifically a moment spent with Jake, my friend's son. He had always been charming in a boyish way, his laughter infectious and his energy captivating. We had shared a brief kiss during a summer barbecue years ago, a fleeting moment that lingered in my mind long after it happened. The memory brought warmth to my cheeks even now. Just as I was lost in reverie, I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced as I approached cautiously. Who could it be? The power outage had left our neighborhood quiet and still. Peering through the peephole revealed Jake standing there, his silhouette barely visible against the night sky. A rush of emotion surged through me, surprise mingled with an inexplicable thrill. I opened the door slowly, unsure of what to expect from this unexpected visit. "Jake?" I whispered into the darkness as he stepped inside, his presence filling the room like an electric charge. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw your lights were out and thought you might need some company." His casual demeanor belied the tension that hung between us like an unspoken secret. We stood close enough to feel each other's warmth but far enough to maintain an air of innocence, at least for now. "Come in," I replied hesitantly, closing the door behind him as if sealing away any doubts or judgments from outside. We made our way to the kitchen where candlelight flickered gently on our faces. The atmosphere shifted palpably as we began to talk about anything and everything, our lives since that summer day years ago when we last saw each other. Laughter erupted over shared memories. It felt easy and familiar yet charged with something deeper that neither of us dared to name just yet. But beneath it all lay an undercurrent of longing within me, a desire for connection that had been absent for far too long in my marriage. As we reminisced about childhood adventures, I caught myself leaning closer to him without realizing it until our shoulders brushed against each other lightly. Then came another knock at the door, a reminder of reality intruding upon our momentary escape from it all. My heart sank slightly. What if someone else came looking for me? But when Jake glanced at me with those bright eyes full of mischief and warmth, any fear faded away momentarily. In that dimly lit kitchen surrounded by shadows cast by flickering candles, we were just two souls seeking comfort from one another amidst chaos, the world outside fading away into oblivion. The evening wore on until we found ourselves sitting side by side on my kitchen counter, his arm resting casually behind me while we exchanged stories about our dreams for the future and what we wanted out of life beyond these walls filled with routine monotony. "I've missed this," he said suddenly after sharing a particularly funny childhood tale about getting stuck in a tree while trying to impress a girl down the street. His gaze met mine earnestly as he continued softly, "I've missed you." A flutter ignited within me at his words. A mixture of joy tinged with guilt washed over me like waves crashing against shorelines worn smooth over time. However fleeting this moment might be, it felt monumental nonetheless. Before long though reality crept back into focus once more, The weightiness of marital vows loomed heavily upon my shoulders like an anchor threatening to drag me down into murky waters filled with regret should this encounter lead anywhere beyond innocent nostalgia shared between old friends. As if sensing my internal struggle brewing beneath surface-level conversation topics, he leaned closer still until our faces nearly touched, breath mingling together between us, the air thickening around us like fog rolling through early morning streets before dissipating under sunlight's embrace. "Can we do this again?" he asked quietly after what felt like hours spent suspended between possibility and consequence, hanging delicately upon fragile threads woven tightly together within hearts yearning for connection amidst chaos surrounding them both outside their respective lives' confines. Just then, I heard another knock echoing through silence, once more breaking spellbinding moment shared between us, leaving lingering question hanging heavily upon lips parted slightly, readying themselves for answers yet unspoken. The knock echoed again, pulling me back from the warmth of our shared moment. I hesitated, caught between the thrill of his presence and the reality of my life. The darkness felt heavy, yet it was comforting in its anonymity. I lit another candle, the flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Should we just ignore it?" he whispered, a hint of mischief in his voice. I looked at him, heart racing. The thrill of secrecy wrapped around us like a warm blanket. "What if it's someone who needs help?" I replied, though part of me wanted to keep this moment just for us. After a pause, he shrugged. "It's probably just the neighbors checking on everyone." I nodded, knowing that my husband was likely oblivious to my absence. A part of me felt guilty for enjoying this stolen time so much while he sat in front of the television, unaware. As we settled back into our bubble of intimacy, we began sharing stories from our childhoods. His laughter brightened the air around us. "I remember when we kissed," he said suddenly, a playful glint in his eye. My heart skipped a beat as memories flooded back, innocent moments that now felt so distant yet so close at the same time. "I thought you'd forgotten," I replied softly. There was an undeniable connection between us that transcended years and circumstances. We spoke about dreams and aspirations, hopes that had been buried under the weight of adult responsibilities. With each shared memory, I felt myself leaning closer to him. "Do you ever wish you could go back?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. My breath caught as I considered my current life, a marriage filled with discontent and longing for something more meaningful. "Every day," I admitted. Then he leaned in closer, his breath warm against my cheek as he whispered a secret that made my heart race. "I'm leaving town soon for a job opportunity." The words hung between us like an unspoken challenge, an invitation to confront what lay ahead. "Why does it feel like everything is changing?" I asked, feeling vulnerable yet exhilarated by our conversation's depth. He looked into my eyes as if searching for answers himself. "Maybe because we both want something different," he replied thoughtfully. The room felt charged with unspoken possibilities as we sat together in candlelight, our fears and desires mingling in the air like smoke from the flickering flames around us. It was intoxicating yet terrifying to think about what this connection could mean for both our lives. As the night wore on and shadows deepened around us, I knew this moment couldn't last forever. The weight of reality pressed heavily upon me like an anchor, pulling me back down into familiar waters where discontent awaited me once more. Suddenly, there was another knock at the door, this time more insistent than before, and panic surged through me like ice water in my veins. "What if it's your husband?" he asked urgently as we exchanged glances filled with dread and uncertainty. "Stay quiet," I instructed him softly while moving toward the door cautiously. Every step felt like walking on glass as fear gripped my heart tightly within its grasp. I opened it just enough to peek out into the hallway. Relief washed over me when I saw it was only a neighbor checking on us after hearing about the blackout earlier that evening. "Just wanted to make sure you're okay," she called out cheerfully from behind her own candlelit doorway before heading back down the hall with her family in tow. I closed the door slowly and turned back toward him, anxiety still lingered thickly in the air between us despite having avoided discovery this time around. "What if someone finds out?" he asked again as worry clouded his features momentarily before determination replaced it, his eyes glinting with resolve under flickering light once more. "We'll figure it out," I assured him quietly, but deep down inside, I wondered if this connection would be worth risking everything for. As dawn approached outside with its muted hues creeping through drawn curtains like whispers beckoning forth new beginnings, I realized how much I craved to hold on to these fleeting moments forever despite knowing they might lead nowhere but heartbreak eventually. And then came another twist. Just as morning light began spilling into our shared world, the realization struck me hard: he had become more than just my friend's son, he'd become a reflection of everything missing from my life, a glimpse into what could have been had circumstances been different. But then came another wave crashing down upon me. The weight of marital vows loomed heavily over every decision made thus far. Before long, he stood up abruptly, breaking tension-filled silence lingering between us while casting one last look over his shoulder before slipping away unnoticed into morning shadows. Left behind was only silence mixed with echoing memories, along with an unfinished sketch resting delicately atop coffee table where intimacy once thrived amidst chaos surrounding both our lives. I stared at the sketch, the lines capturing a moment that felt both surreal and painfully real. The image of my friend's son lingered in my mind, his laughter echoing like music from a forgotten time. I could still feel the warmth of his presence, even in the cold light of morning. Guilt washed over me as I recalled our whispered secrets and shared dreams. I picked up the sketch, tracing the outline with my fingers. It was surprisingly detailed, revealing not just his artistic skill but also a glimpse into his thoughts. "What dreams do you chase?" I whispered to myself, feeling an ache in my chest. I placed it back on the table, knowing it would haunt me until I found closure. Later that day, I busied myself with household chores, trying to drown out thoughts of him with mundane tasks. Each clatter of dishes felt like an anchor pulling me back to reality. My husband walked in, a newspaper tucked under his arm. "Any plans for dinner?" he asked casually, but there was something in his tone that made me pause. "Just the usual," I replied, forcing a smile. He nodded and disappeared into the living room, leaving me alone with my thoughts again. The weight of our unspoken words hung heavily in the air. That evening, as I prepared dinner, chicken sautéed with garlic and herbs, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had shifted within me. The kitchen smelled comforting and familiar, yet it felt suffocating at that moment. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from him: "I'll be leaving town soon." My heart raced as I read those words. I typed back quickly, "When?" His response came almost immediately: "Next week." The realization hit me like a wave crashing against rocks. Time was running out for us to explore whatever this connection was blossoming between us. The thought filled me with both excitement and dread. That night, sleep eluded me as I tossed and turned in bed beside my husband. The shadows danced across the walls like memories I couldn't escape from, a mix of joy and guilt intertwined in every heartbeat. What did I want? What did he want? The next day felt heavy as I drove past familiar places. The local cafe where we had shared laughter and stories just days before now seemed tainted by uncertainty. Would we meet again? My mind raced with possibilities while my heart yearned for clarity. At home later that afternoon, I stood by the window watching raindrops race down the glass. They mirrored my thoughts, fast yet aimless. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door that jolted me from my reverie. My heart skipped as I opened it to find him standing there, drenched but smiling softly. "I thought you might want some company," he said playfully despite his soaked appearance. I stepped aside to let him in, feeling both thrilled and terrified by this unexpected visit. "You shouldn't have come," I murmured. "I wanted to see you before," he hesitated, then continued softly, "before I leave." We settled on the couch wrapped in silence for a moment before he broke it again. "What do you dream about?" His question hung between us like an unspoken promise waiting to be fulfilled. As we began sharing our aspirations, his ambitions to travel and create art while mine revolved around finding happiness, I found myself leaning closer toward him without realizing it. We kissed, he reminded me suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper yet charged with intensity. My breath caught in my throat as memories flooded back, the warmth of our lips meeting under candlelight amidst shadows cast by flickering flames. How could such a simple act feel so profound? Just then, he leaned back slightly and added quietly, "I'm scared of what happens next." Me too, I admitted honestly. Fear mingled with longing surged through me like electricity sparking between two wires about to connect. He looked deep into my eyes, searching for answers that neither of us could provide at that moment. It felt like we were suspended in time, caught between dreams and reality. Yet reality crashed back when he mentioned leaving town soon for an opportunity that could change everything for him, and perhaps for us too if we allowed ourselves to take this leap together. "What if this is our last chance?" he asked softly. Those words echoed louder than any thunder outside as rain continued to pour relentlessly against windows surrounding us. "I don't know," I replied honestly, feeling torn between desire and duty once more, a conflict growing heavier each passing minute spent together until finally. The doorbell rang again, cutting through our fragile bubble like glass shattering upon impact. Panic surged within me as dread filled every corner of my mind, the realization dawning upon us both that someone else had entered our world unexpectedly. "Who is it?" he asked sharply, glancing toward where sound had come from while tension thickened around us like fog enveloping everything else outside our little sanctuary together. The door swung open, revealing my husband, his face a mix of confusion and concern. I froze, caught in the web of our shared moment. The dim candlelight flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls, reminding me of the intimacy we had just created. "Why is it so dark in here?" he asked, stepping inside and breaking the spell that had enveloped us. I glanced at my friend's son, who shifted uncomfortably beside me. The warmth of our earlier connection felt like ice now, and I struggled to regain composure. "It's just a blackout," I replied too casually, hoping to deflect his curiosity. I was about to light some more candles. My heart raced as I felt his gaze linger on the young man beside me. The room felt smaller, suffocating with unspoken words. "Did you hear from anyone about when the power might come back?" my husband continued, oblivious to the tension. I shook my head, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy while my mind raced with thoughts of what had just transpired between us. As he turned away to check the kitchen for candles, I whispered to my companion, "We need to talk about this." His eyes widened slightly, he understood the weight of those words. We shared a laugh over a childhood memory that felt distant yet comforting in this chaotic moment. "Remember when we kissed under that old oak tree?" he said with a grin. The laughter faded as reality set back in. We both knew this was more than just a fleeting connection now. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. "I can't keep doing this," I murmured, glancing toward the kitchen where my husband rummaged through drawers. He looked up suddenly as if sensing the shift in atmosphere but didn't question it further. "I want to see you again before I leave," he suggested quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but charged with urgency. My heart raced at the thought. Part of me wanted to agree while another part screamed for caution. "Let's meet at Café Delights tomorrow," I replied quickly before doubt could creep in further. He nodded slowly as if weighing his options carefully. Our shared secret hung between us like an unbreakable thread. Just then, my husband returned with a handful of candles and matches in hand. "Here we go," he said cheerfully as he lit one and placed it on the table between us. The flickering flame illuminated his face but left shadows lurking around us, shadows filled with unspoken truths and hidden desires. As we sat together in that fragile moment of light and darkness, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something significant had shifted within me during our time together. It was thrilling yet daunting to confront what lay ahead. The evening wore on with strained conversations filled with laughter that felt forced rather than genuine, a stark contrast to what I had experienced moments earlier with him alone in this room. After dinner, when my husband excused himself for a quick errand nearby, I turned back toward my friend's son. "This can't happen again," I whispered urgently as soon as we were alone once more. He stepped closer, our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity until he broke away first, a silent acknowledgement of our predicament hanging thickly between us. "I know," he replied softly but firmly, understanding all too well how complicated things had become since that night when we spent together under candlelight without any interruptions from outside life. Before long, however, my husband returned home, his presence instantly shifting everything back into its rightful place like an unwelcome jolt from reality crashing down upon us again. As he entered through the door carrying bags filled with groceries, mundane reminders of everyday life, I couldn't help but feel trapped within these walls once more where secrets lurked just beneath each surface waiting for their chance to emerge into daylight. The following day arrived too quickly for comfort. Anticipation bubbled within me as I prepared for our secret meeting at Café Delights, an oasis amidst chaos where memories would intertwine once more over cups filled with steaming coffee amidst whispers shared between two hearts yearning for connection beyond societal norms. Yet doubts nagged at me relentlessly throughout preparations. What if someone saw us? What if word got back home? But still, the thrill outweighed fear, momentarily allowing hope to blossom despite circumstances beyond control looming overhead, threatening everything fragile built thus far. As I stepped inside Café Delights later that afternoon, a cozy little spot adorned by bright murals reflecting community spirit, I spotted him sitting by a window watching people pass outside, lost in thought until our eyes met, igniting something deep within. But then an unexpected figure appeared, a familiar face from my past who strolled right toward us without hesitation or doubt written all over her features. "Isn't that your old friend?" he asked quietly, breaking into my thoughts while tension rose sharply around us like waves crashing against rocks on stormy seas, threatening everything. Caught off guard by her sudden presence, the world blurred around me, leaving nothing but uncertainty hanging heavy above as she approached closer, readying herself for confrontation. I felt the weight of her gaze, sharp and piercing. My heart raced as I turned to face her, trying to mask the turmoil within. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just enjoying my coffee." "You seem distracted." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. I could feel my cheeks flush, the heat rising as I recalled the night before. "Just catching up with an old friend," I replied, forcing a casual tone. But I knew that wasn't entirely true. The cafe was filled with laughter and chatter, yet all I could hear was the echo of our shared moments in the dark. My mind drifted back to his warm presence beside me, the thrill of our connection. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared at the entrance, a figure from my past. It was Clara, an old acquaintance from my college days. She spotted me immediately and made her way over, her expression shifting from surprise to curiosity as she approached our table. "Is this your son?" Clara asked innocently, glancing at him with a smile that felt like a spotlight on our secret. My stomach twisted in knots as I struggled to maintain composure. "No, just a friend," I said quickly, feeling the weight of my words press down on me like a lead blanket. The tension in the air thickened as Clara studied us both closely. "Friendship looks different these days," she remarked lightly but with an undercurrent of skepticism. "You seem awfully cozy." Her eyes danced between us, searching for something more than just companionship. A nervous laugh escaped me as I attempted to deflect her probing gaze. "We were just reminiscing about old times," I offered weakly. The truth felt like a fragile glass ornament on display, one wrong move and it would shatter into pieces. Clara raised an eyebrow but chose not to press further. Instead, she shifted topics, sharing stories about mutual friends and their lives since college. Despite her light-hearted demeanor, I could sense that she wasn't entirely convinced by my facade. As we chatted about mundane things, the weather and local events, I caught glimpses of him out of the corner of my eye. Each time our gazes met, a silent understanding passed between us. We were two souls bound by secrets in plain sight. Then came the moment that sent chills down my spine. Clara leaned in closer and whispered conspiratorially, "You know there's always gossip in this town." Her tone shifted from friendly to cautionary as she continued. "People love making assumptions." I swallowed hard, every word felt like a warning bell ringing in my ears. The last thing I wanted was for anyone to speculate about our relationship or draw conclusions that could lead back to my husband. "Don't worry about it," he interjected smoothly, his voice steady despite the tension thickening around us like fog rolling in off the coast. "We're just catching up." His calm demeanor was reassuring yet unnerving at once. It made me question how deep this connection really ran. As Clara nodded and returned to lighter topics about upcoming community events, potlucks and book fairs, I found myself lost in thought again. How had we ended up here? A secret rendezvous disguised as innocent friendship? The afternoon slipped away quickly, each tick of the clock resonating louder than before as if time itself were reminding me of the precariousness of my situation. Finally, when Clara excused herself to greet another friend across the cafe, I turned toward him. "We should go somewhere else," I suggested quietly, glancing around nervously as if someone might overhear us plotting an escape from scrutiny. He nodded but hesitated for a moment before replying softly, "I'd like that." There was something unspoken between us, a mixture of excitement and fear that hung heavily in the air like unlit fireworks waiting for ignition. We left together under the guise of casual acquaintanceship, however, every step felt charged with possibility and danger alike. As we walked through town towards a small park nearby, one filled with blooming flowers and winding paths, I couldn't shake off Clara's words echoing in my mind, "People love making assumptions." The park was quieter than usual. Families enjoyed picnics while children played nearby, oblivious to our predicament unfolding just beyond their sightline. We found a secluded bench beneath an oak tree where sunlight filtered through leaves dancing gently overhead, a stark contrast to what lay beneath our surface tensions. "I didn't expect anyone from your past to show up today," he said lightly after settling next to me on the bench while casting furtive glances around us, ensuring privacy remained intact amidst blooming chaos surrounding life itself outside this bubble we'd created together. "Neither did I admitted honestly, feeling both relief at being away from prying eyes yet anxious about what lay ahead for us both. An uncharted territory fraught with potential consequences lurking behind every decision made, henceforth moving forward into unknown waters together. Just then, a distant sound shattered our momentary peace. An unmistakable ringtone blaring loudly from his pocket interrupted whatever tentative intimacy we'd managed thus far building between ourselves today amidst all distractions present around us. He pulled out his phone only for his expression darken abruptly upon seeing who was calling. Suddenly everything shifted again into uncertainty, once more threatening everything we'd begun constructing carefully over these past few weeks spent together since that fateful blackout night. The phone call shattered the fragile atmosphere we had created. He glanced at the screen, his face clouding with concern. "I need to take this," he said, stepping away from me. I watched him walk into the shadows of my living room, feeling a pang of anxiety twist in my stomach. The warmth of our connection felt distant now, slipping through my fingers like sand. As he spoke quietly on the phone, I busied myself lighting more candles. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating a cocoon that felt both intimate and suffocating. I could hear fragments of his conversation, his voice low and serious, but it only deepened my sense of isolation in that moment. What could be so urgent that it pulled him away from me? When he returned, his expression was unreadable. "Sorry about that," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Just some family stuff." The tension hung heavy between us as I tried to gauge what had changed in him during those few minutes apart. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap that had suddenly formed, but uncertainty held me back. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked softly, hoping to find a way back to the warmth we had shared before. He shook his head slowly, avoiding my gaze. "It's nothing you need to worry about." His words felt like a door closing between us, and I felt an unsettling chill creep into the cozy atmosphere. Instead of pushing further, I shifted our focus back to lighter topics, old memories from school days and silly childhood stories. We laughed together again, but it was tinged with an undercurrent of something unresolved. As night deepened outside and shadows wrapped around us like a blanket, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was slipping away. Then he leaned closer again, our knees brushing against each other on the couch as if magnetically drawn together once more. "I want this," he said softly, searching my eyes for understanding. "I want us." My heart raced at his words. They were both exhilarating and terrifying. "We spent the night together," I whispered back, recalling how easily we had crossed boundaries just days before. He nodded solemnly but didn't say anything more, perhaps sensing my internal struggle with what we were building together amidst so many uncertainties. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, a car door slamming shut followed by raised voices drifting through my open window. My heart sank as reality crashed back in on me like a wave. It was too risky being here with him while someone could easily discover us together in this vulnerable state. "I think we should go somewhere else," I suggested quietly as panic began to rise within me again. He hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement but didn't move right away. Instead, he studied my face intently as if searching for something deeper beneath the surface. "Are you sure?" he asked finally after what felt like an eternity passed between us, filled only by flickering candlelight and distant sounds from outside breaking our bubble of intimacy once more. "Yes," I replied firmly despite every ounce of doubt creeping back into my mind about whether this was truly what either of us needed right now or if it would only complicate things further still. We gathered our things quickly and slipped out into the cool night air together hand in hand, a secret escape from everything waiting beyond those walls where reality loomed large over our heads like an ominous cloud threatening rain at any moment. The streets were quiet as we walked side by side under dim streetlights illuminating our path forward toward whatever lay ahead while leaving behind all burdens weighing down upon both our hearts tonight. As we reached a nearby park filled with rustling trees swaying gently against each other in harmony beneath starlit skies above, he paused suddenly, turning towards me once more, catching me off guard, completely lost within thoughts swirling around inside my head, still trying desperately figure out how best navigate these uncharted waters between us. "I need you to know something," he said seriously, breaking through my reverie, causing butterflies erupting wildly throughout stomach, instantly making everything feel electric again despite looming uncertainties surrounding us both, ever present, lurking nearby, waiting patiently for their chance strike when least expected. "What is it?" I asked breathlessly, leaning closer, wanting desperately hear whatever truth lay hidden beneath surface, ready expose itself finally after all this time spent tiptoeing around edges without ever fully diving headfirst into depths unknown. He took a deep breath, almost hesitating before finally uttering words that would change everything forever, etched forever within memory. "I'm leaving town tomorrow morning." The weight of those words crashed over me like waves crashing against rocky shorelines, pulling away everything solid beneath feet, leaving nothing but uncertainty hanging heavily above head, threatening drown beneath tides rising higher every passing second. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying emotions swirling inside, fighting for dominance amidst chaos erupting within, heart-struggling grasp hold on to fleeting moments shared between us, knowing they might soon become nothing more than memories lost forever. "I didn't want to ruin tonight," he replied simply, meeting gaze searching for understanding reflected back at him, hoping somehow bridge gap widened ever since first day met each other long ago when life seemed so much simpler than now. But before could respond, further darkness crept closer, wrapping around us tightly like suffocating blanket until finally breaking free just moments later, allowing light flood back into view, revealing truth hidden underneath layers built up over years spent apart. Suddenly realizing how much time left dwindling away, rapidly slipping through fingers faster than imagined possible, leaving little room breathe deeply amidst pressure mounting steadily all around, threatening crush beneath weight. Choices made a long way leading here tonight, standing together alone, facing uncertain future looming ahead. Wait. He turned abruptly, looking toward direction, sound coming from behind just as headlights flashed bright, illuminating everything around, revealing familiar silhouette approaching fast, growing closer every second passing by, forcing decision made long ago come rushing back. Full force, refusing let go despite consequences looming large overhead, threatening unravel everything built carefully piece by piece over weeks spent learning trust one another, slowly rebuilding foundations once thought lost forever. In that moment, the choice became clear: either stay rooted firmly ground risking exposure, or run towards unknown future filled with promise yet fraught danger lurking just beyond horizon, waiting patiently, strike when least expected, catching unprepared, unaware consequences, actions taken leading here today, standing together facing crossroads never thought possible until now. I stood frozen, my heart pounding as the headlights illuminated the familiar silhouette of my husband. The warmth that had enveloped me moments before felt like a distant memory, replaced by a chilling reality. I had to make a choice, and fast. "Why are you out here?" he called out, his voice carrying a mixture of concern and confusion. My mind raced, scrambling for an excuse. "I was just getting some fresh air." He stepped closer, his expression shifting from worry to suspicion. "It's late. You should come inside." As he reached for my hand, I felt a surge of panic. The sketch he left behind felt like a weight in my pocket, a reminder of what transpired between us. I couldn't let him see it, it would unravel everything. "I'll be right in," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. As he turned to walk back toward the house, I felt an overwhelming urge to run after him and confess everything. But what good would that do? The next morning brought no clarity, instead, it deepened my confusion. I sat at the kitchen table with coffee growing cold in front of me while the sketch lay hidden beneath a pile of bills. Each time I caught sight of it from the corner of my eye, memories flooded back, how we spent the night together sharing secrets and laughter in the dim candlelight. A sudden ring broke through my thoughts. It was Clara, my friend. "Hey. You've been quiet lately," she said cheerfully. "How's everything with you?" "Busy," I replied flatly. "Busy? Or just not happy?" Her tone shifted slightly, she knew me too well. "I'm fine," I insisted, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they rang hollow. "Listen," she continued gently, "you've been married long enough to know when something feels off. Are you happy?" Her question hung in the air like an uninvited guest. The truth was painfully obvious. Happiness had become elusive since our children grew up and moved away. My life revolved around routines that felt more like obligations than joy. "I'm okay," I finally said. "Okay isn't enough," she pressed gently. As we talked about mundane things, gardening tips and local events, I felt an ache for connection blooming within me again. The sketch remained tucked away in its hiding place but loomed large in my mind's eye. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out the sketch from where it lay hidden among the clutter on the table. His delicate lines captured not just my features but also an emotion, vulnerability mixed with longing, that felt foreign yet exhilarating. Just then, another call interrupted me, a number unfamiliar yet strangely familiar at once. It was from his mother asking if I'd seen her son recently. Panic washed over me as memories flooded back, the laughter we shared during those stolen moments, and all at once I realized how much time had passed since that night together. "No," I replied carefully, trying to keep my voice steady despite feeling like everything was spiraling out of control. Really? He hasn't mentioned anything? She sounded concerned now. No, he's busy with work. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue as guilt washed over me again like waves crashing against jagged rocks. When we hung up, dread settled heavily on my chest, the realization that he hadn't reached out since our night together gnawed at me relentlessly. What if he didn't want to see me again? What if everything we shared meant nothing to him? Days turned into weeks without any word from him. Each passing moment deepened my sense of loss and regret for choices made under cover of darkness. The weight of unspoken words hung heavily between us like thick fog obscuring clarity. Then one afternoon as I walked through town, lost in thought, I spotted his car parked near a small cafe filled with vibrant murals depicting scenes from our community's history. A surge of hope ignited within me as adrenaline rushed through my veins. Maybe he was waiting there for me after all. But when I approached, cautiously peering through glass windows looking for signs of life inside, I froze upon seeing two women conversing animatedly at a nearby table discussing their own marital struggles. "It's just so hard sometimes," one said softly while stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "I know what you mean," her friend responded sympathetically before adding with a hint of sarcasm, "Men can be so clueless." Their words resonated deeply within me, a reminder that even amidst chaos and uncertainty there existed shared experiences connecting us all regardless of age or circumstance. Suddenly feeling exposed under their scrutiny, I turned quickly hoping they hadn't noticed me lingering outside when something caught my eye, a familiar figure walking toward them from across the street. My heart dropped as realization dawned upon me. It was him. I froze in place, my breath hitching as he approached. The two women turned their heads, their laughter fading into whispers. I felt a rush of panic, unsure if I should retreat or stay. He seemed unaware of my presence, focused on the conversation with them, a casual smile on his face. As he drew closer, I noticed the way the sunlight caught his hair, illuminating the carefree aura he exuded. It reminded me of that night we spent together, how we laughed and shared secrets. I wanted to call out to him but felt anchored to the ground, paralyzed by fear of being seen. "Hey! What are you doing here?" he suddenly asked, spotting me. His tone was light but there was a hint of surprise. "I was just enjoying the park," I managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He stepped toward me, his expression shifting to concern as he glanced at the two women who were now watching us closely. "It's nice to see you," he said quietly, lowering his voice. "I didn't think you'd come out today." "I needed some air," I replied, my heart racing. The weight of my secret loomed heavily over us both. Before we could delve deeper into conversation, one of the women piped up. "Are you two friends? You look like you have a lot in common." Her tone was teasing but it felt invasive. "Just acquaintances," I answered quickly, casting a sidelong glance at him. He nodded in agreement but his eyes betrayed a longing for something more than friendship. As they continued chatting about mundane topics, gossip about local happenings, I felt increasingly restless. My mind raced with thoughts of our last encounter and how much I craved another chance to connect with him away from prying eyes. Suddenly, one of the women mentioned an upcoming community event at the town hall next week. "You should come. It'll be fun," she exclaimed enthusiastically. "Maybe," I replied absently, my gaze still fixed on him as he shifted nervously beside me. He leaned in slightly and whispered, "I'll be there." My heart leaped at this small promise, a glimmer of hope in our tangled lives. Just then, a familiar car pulled up nearby, a deep blue sedan that sent chills down my spine. My husband's vehicle. Panic surged through me as reality crashed back. I was risking everything for a fleeting moment with him. "I have to go," I blurted out suddenly, turning on my heel and walking briskly away before he could respond. The laughter and chatter faded behind me as I navigated through the park's winding paths, each step heavy with dread. Once home, I hurried inside and locked the door behind me. My hands trembled as I leaned against it for support. The confrontation looming ahead felt inevitable now. My husband would sense something was off after seeing me with him. The house was eerily quiet except for the ticking clock in the hallway, a constant reminder of time slipping away from me. I moved toward the living room where sunlight streamed through the windows but offered little warmth against my growing anxiety. My phone buzzed on the table, a text from him lighting up the screen. Did you make it home okay? A wave of relief washed over me despite everything else. The thrill of knowing he thought about me even after our brief encounter filled me with a bittersweet joy. But just as quickly as it came, guilt followed closely behind. I typed back cautiously, yes, just got home. There was no response for several minutes that felt like hours until finally another message popped up. Can we talk soon? My pulse quickened again. This could lead to either clarity or disaster. But how could we meet without raising suspicion? Anxiety gnawed at my insides as I contemplated how far I'd let this go and what risks were worth taking for an emotional connection that seemed more elusive than ever. The sound of keys jangling outside snapped me back to reality. It was him, my husband, returning home from work earlier than usual today. Panic surged again as I quickly tucked my phone away and plastered on an innocent expression just before he walked through the door. "How was your day?" he asked casually while hanging up his coat by the door. "It was fine," I replied too quickly, avoiding eye contact as dread settled in my stomach like lead. He paused for a moment before continuing into the kitchen where familiar scents wafted from dinner simmering on the stove, a routine that had become comforting yet suffocating over time. But even amidst this normalcy, thoughts of him lingered like shadows in every corner of my mind, the thrill mixed with fear creating an internal tug-of-war that left me feeling more lost than ever before. As dinner progressed uneventfully between us, small talk about work and chores, I couldn't shake off how close I'd come to being discovered today in that park, how easily everything could unravel if anyone found out about him or what had happened between us during those stolen moments together under candlelight during that blackout night months ago. After dinner concluded without incident and dishes cleared away silently between us both, the weight of unspoken words hung heavily in our home. I decided it was time to take control rather than wait passively for fate to decide for me regarding our entangled lives. I stepped into the quiet of my living room, feeling the weight of my decision pressing down on me. The evening air was thick with tension, and I knew I had to find a way to reconnect with myself amidst the chaos of my life. My husband had retreated to the television, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. Determined to break free from my routine, I signed up for a pottery class at the community center. It felt liberating to try something new, even if it was just for an hour each week. The first session was chaotic, filled with laughter and clay flying everywhere. As I molded the wet earth between my fingers, I felt a flicker of joy that had long been absent from my life. Yet, guilt gnawed at me as I shaped each piece. Every smile shared with new acquaintances reminded me of what I was missing at home and with him. The thrill of our secret lingered in my mind like a ghost, refusing to let go. "You're doing great," one woman exclaimed as she admired my lopsided bowl. Her encouragement felt foreign but refreshing. That evening, an invitation arrived for a gathering at a friend's house. It promised good food and laughter, a perfect distraction from my internal conflict. But as I prepared for the event, excitement turned to dread when I spotted his name on the guest list. My heart raced. Would this be an opportunity or a disaster waiting to happen? At the gathering, surrounded by familiar faces and lively conversations, I tried to focus on small talk and laughter. Yet, every glance around the room sent jolts of anxiety through me. Suddenly, there he was across the crowded space, his presence electrifying and magnetic as always. He stood laughing with friends, effortlessly charming everyone around him. I hesitated before approaching him, knowing that our connection could shatter everything in an instant. My heart pounded in my chest as I made my way through clusters of people chatting about mundane topics, home renovations and kids' school projects, while all I could think about was how he had made me feel alive again. "Hey," he said when our eyes met, his smile genuine yet guarded. "It's been a while." "Yeah," I replied softly, feeling exposed under his gaze. We exchanged pleasantries while keeping our distance from prying eyes. It felt both exhilarating and dangerous. The thrill of secrecy wrapped around us like a warm blanket against the chill of reality outside this moment. "Let's talk later," he suggested quietly before slipping back into the crowd. As night wore on, laughter echoed around me but felt distant, like watching life unfold behind glass. Every joke shared seemed hollow compared to what lay unsaid between us. Finally, when most guests began to drift homeward, he found me again in a quieter corner. "I've missed you," he confessed softly. "I've missed you too," I admitted without thinking. He took a step closer. Our surroundings faded away as we were enveloped in our own world again, the warmth between us undeniable despite everything else swirling around us. Suddenly aware that this moment could lead us down an irreversible path once more, panic surged within me like ice water coursing through my veins. "We can't keep doing this," I blurted out before catching myself. His expression shifted instantly from warmth to concern as if he sensed the storm brewing within me, a storm fueled by fear and longing all at once. "Why not?" he asked gently but firmly. I hesitated, words tangled in my throat like vines choking out light from within me. Because it's complicated." He nodded slowly but didn't pull away. Instead, his gaze held mine with intensity that made it hard to breathe. "Maybe it doesn't have to be," he said quietly. In that moment, every doubt collided within me. The reality of my marriage weighed heavily against what we shared in those fleeting moments together during dark nights filled only with candlelight and whispered secrets. Just then, someone called out for him from across the room, a reminder that reality awaited outside our bubble of intimacy. "I should go," he said reluctantly but didn't move away yet either. Instead, we lingered there suspended between choices unmade and paths unexplored until finally breaking apart reluctantly when another guest approached us both excitedly discussing plans for next weekend's events. As we parted ways amidst laughter echoing around us once more, I caught sight of something familiar on his wrist, a bracelet we had once joked about during one of those late-night conversations under candlelight so long ago. My heart sank at its significance. It felt like an anchor tethering him back into memories rather than propelling us forward into something new or different altogether. I left feeling unsettled yet strangely invigorated by having faced him again after so long, and yet knowing deep down that confronting these feelings would require more than just fleeting encounters in dark corners or stolen moments filled only with whispers. As dawn approached outside, casting pale light through windows, I realized how much longer this charade could last without consequences looming ever closer. I stood in my kitchen, the morning light spilling through the windows, illuminating the remnants of last night's chaos. My heart raced as I recalled his face, the way his laughter had filled the room despite the darkness. But now, with daylight streaming in, reality settled heavily on my shoulders. I had let myself indulge in a fleeting moment of joy, but at what cost? My phone buzzed on the counter, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from him. "I miss our time together." My stomach twisted at the words. Did he truly understand what we were doing? I glanced toward the living room, half expecting to see my husband walk through the door at any moment. The thought sent a chill down my spine. "Are you okay?" My friend Lisa's voice echoed in my mind. She had sensed my shift in demeanor lately and pressed me to talk about it over coffee. I had brushed her off repeatedly, but now I felt an urge to confide in someone who might understand this turmoil. I quickly typed a response to him, "We need to talk." As soon as I hit send, a wave of anxiety washed over me. What if he didn't want to meet? What if he did? The uncertainty gnawed at me like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. Later that day, I found myself sitting across from Lisa at our favorite cafe. The vibrant murals brightened up our usual spot, but today they felt distant and unreal. "You seem distracted," she remarked, sipping her coffee slowly as she studied me. "I've been thinking about things," I said cautiously. "Things? Like what?" She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. "About life, choices, and people." My voice faltered as I considered how much to reveal. "You mean that guy you've been seeing?" she prodded gently. "No. Not like that," I snapped before taking a deep breath. "It's complicated." As we spoke, her encouragement began to chip away at my defenses. "You deserve happiness," she insisted softly. "Don't ignore your feelings." Just then, my phone buzzed again with another message from him. "Can we meet tonight?" My heart raced anew. His timing felt almost too perfect yet unsettling. "I have to go," I blurted out suddenly, standing up before she could respond. "Wait. Where are you going?" Lisa called after me as I hurried out of the cafe. The park was quiet when I arrived later that evening. Shadows stretched long across the path as dusk settled in. My heart pounded with anticipation and fear as I spotted him leaning against a tree near where we used to play as kids. He smiled when he saw me, but there was something different about his expression, an urgency mixed with uncertainty. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he admitted softly as we embraced briefly before stepping back into the twilight shadows. "I needed to see you," I replied honestly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by our connection. We walked side by side along the winding path lined with blooming flowers that seemed oblivious to our internal struggles. He shared stories about his upcoming job opportunity, how excited yet anxious he felt about leaving town again soon, and each word seemed to deepen my internal conflict. "Will you miss this place?" I asked quietly. "Yeah, especially you." His gaze held mine for a moment longer than necessary before turning away toward the fading light. I hesitated before speaking again. It felt like crossing an invisible line between friendship and something more profound. "What if we explored this, whatever this is?" He looked surprised but intrigued by my suggestion. His eyes lit up momentarily before they clouded over again with doubt. "But what about your marriage?" "I don't know anymore." The truth slipped out before I could stop it. It felt liberating yet terrifying all at once. As darkness enveloped us completely, he reached for my hand tentatively, our fingers intertwined naturally, as if they belonged there all along. Suddenly everything around us faded into insignificance. It was just us against the world outside this momentary bubble of intimacy and understanding. But then reality crashed back in when a familiar car pulled into view nearby, the headlights sweeping across our faces like an unwelcome spotlight piercing through our secret world. Panic surged through me as recognition set in. It was my husband returning home earlier than expected from work. "I have to go," I whispered urgently while pulling away from him instinctively, my heart racing wildly now, not just from excitement but fear too. He nodded slowly but didn't let go of my hand immediately. There was an unspoken understanding between us that neither of us wanted this moment to end just yet, despite knowing its inevitable conclusion loomed ahead like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. As I turned away reluctantly toward home, a million thoughts racing through my mind, I glanced back once more only to find him standing alone under that tree where shadows danced around him like ghosts of decisions left unmade. The weight of impending consequences hung heavily over me like dark clouds gathering for a storm, the kind that promised chaos and change without warning or mercy, and deep down inside, I knew there would be no easy escape from what lay ahead.